Hello everyone, my name is Moji. You're watching a Bitcoin bubble news channel. When you take out old highs, it's hard to tell what prices will do next. That's why I believe we'll break through the 73,000 mark before the end of the year and end up somewhere around 100. If I look at how much gold is worth on the market, right? And at $70, Bitcoin is worth about $1.4 trillion and gold is worth about $13 or $14 trillion right now, or 15.15 trillion to be exact. That means we're tenths of gold. Gen Z and millennials will get the money as baby boomers die. Could we have 25% gold in 2 years? That's a lot, but maybe. But I bet that in 10 or 15 years, we'll have all the gold we need. This pattern won't go away. Novogratz recently changed his estimate for the price of Bitcoin during a conversation with Anthony Scaramucci of Skybridge Capital. He now thinks that Bitcoin will be worth $100,000 in 2024. More boomer income will flow into Bitcoin through US spot Bitcoin ETFs, which he thinks will lead to even faster and higher growth after 2025. Novogratz thinks that these ETFs will open up Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency industry as a whole to a huge new market, mostly made up of older Americans with a lot of money that could be worth tens of trillions of dollars. Many people in this group had wrong ideas about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies before the US Securities and Exchange Commission approved these ETFs on January 10th. Novogratz thinks that the huge demand for Bitcoin through these ETFs will last for a long time. The wealthy investor is also positive about Bitcoin and other digital assets because the global and US economies are not doing well right now. He was worried about the state of politics because he thinks elected officials are making bad choices, especially when it comes to spending too much money in the US economy. Novogratz also talked about changing political situations and what they mean for the US crypto business when he talked to Scaramucci. He talked about how important it is that rules are changing because they are making it possible for a lot of money to enter Bitcoin and the whole digital asset space. What's so interesting about crypto and Bitcoin in particular? Well, let's say for a moment that Bitcoin is digital gold and its growth depends on how many people use it. It depends on how people are told it and how much they believe it. Bitcoin is almost always sold, not bought, right? Orange pills are given to you. So even though I trade for a living, I'm really a salesman at heart. My mom worked in sales. My siblings and I all worked as salespeople. This made a lot of sense to me. I used to think it made sense to sell this. I also said this on TV not long ago. I was like Jamie. Jamie Dimon said that Elizabeth Warren would like it as a pet rock. And I told you guys that the pride in your speech is shocking, right? A lot of smart businessmen like Pete Brigger and Mickey Milker, Jeff Yaz, Abby Johnson, Paul Jones, and Stan Druckmacher believe there is value. But you know more than them. Yes, Elizabeth, you are smarter than all the world's best managers. I told them, you don't have to like it, but don't be so cocky as to say it doesn't matter because that group of people did. I saw value in it right away because I thought it would become popular. Satoshi thought it would be a good idea because he saw populism coming. Britain leaving the EU was great for crypto right away. It costs too much for populist governments to run. They are called populists because of this. There is also a wave of populism going around the world. We lost our North Star before we turned 15. The name for it was globalization. Globalization was something that everyone believed in, whether they were right or wrong. There was no more globalization after Brexit. It's now time to talk about resources and a war with China. That wasn't there at all, so we've set up the political and economic conditions for Bitcoin to do well. That's why I talked about gold and silver as ways for hard investments to do well. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is a digital coin that hundreds of millions of people love right now. People in DC finally woke up a bit last week, which is what we're seeing now. Because I've been down there so much, I'm becoming a radical moderate. I used to be a Democrat, but now I'm more of a Republican. It seemed like Democrats don't like crypto because of Elizabeth Warren and the power she had over financial choices in Washington, D.C. during the Biden administration. I said it out loud and in public, guys, there are 65 million dog owners in the United States. There are 85 million people who own crypto. The Democratic Party runs the risk of being known as the party that doesn't like dogs right now. We don't like dogs. I told them you can't just hate crypto, and the same day Biden said he would cancel this strange accounting rule, Trump said, I'm your crypto president. And in the crypto world, it's almost become a test of how pure something is. Democrats don't like crypto, but Republicans do. You're not a crypto person if you don't vote for Trump, so we'll see what happens. A lot of people will be pressing. Another bill about stablecoins is on the way. there is another bill about how markets work. Pay close attention, right? Crypto needs both Democrats and Republicans to understand it and move it forward. The tech can't belong to just one party. The crypto market will be shit because these elections will keep going back and forth for a long time. And crypto should be mostly neutral, as should all technologies, right? Crypto has some of each. It has the libertarian side of Bitcoin and the progressive side of getting rid of the middleman, banks, music producers, and other people who take your money. So I don't understand why Elizabeth Warren decided she hated it. But let's move on from that. Politics aren't as stable as they were when many of us were kids. And you know that the economy is always changing things. In many ways, the U.S. economy is strong, and we're getting close to full employment. Big picture thinkers are still shocked by how strong the economy is. It seems pretty easy to me. The government that came after the one that couldn't keep its pants on is also not doing a good job, and we're spending 6.5% more than we're collecting in taxes. So a budget shortfall of 6.5% is a lot of growth, right? If our budget deficit were 3%, growth would be flat or even go down, but at 6.5%, what does that matter? Because the federal government spends about 26% of the total GDP right now. I worked as a gardener for a while in 1984, but my first real job was at Ronald Reagan's Office of Management and Budget. That's when I learned that the federal government can spend 20% and try to tax 20%. If you learned anything from this talk, it's that you get a 20% of GDP budget. That's what set Republicans and Democrats apart. You do know that Bill Clinton was the only president who raised taxes by 20% and spent 20%, right? 1999, the tech boom was partly his idea and partly just good luck. You try to keep that close, though. You remember what happened in 2015 when authoritarianism grew in this country, right? First, there was Brexit. Then there was Trump, who was the first populist president in our lives. He was followed by Biden, who was also a populist president. They raised spending first because of COVID, and then just because. That means that government spending now makes up about 26% of GDP. It should be 6% less than that. Powell, the head of the Fed, wants to lower rates more than once. It will be the finishing point when he gets close to the end of his term. I did my job, and he's also looking at it right now. We're at about 5.25% of 35 trillion, and that number will grow to 36 trillion in 100 days, 37 trillion in 100 days, 37 trillion in 100 days, and 38 trillion in 100 days, right? It's not being talked about that we are in a debt spiral, so it would feel a lot better if I could lower rates to zero. My loan is being paid off for a lot less money. That's one reason he wants to lower interest rates, right? Less debt means less money to pay for things. For the first time ever, the Fed is losing a lot of money every year. It asks, how'd you do this year? As you run it back. Since the Fed is a bank. I'm sorry, I lost 100 billion. The trouble is that there are two sides to every story about how a country handles its money. The Fed has a share and the Treasury has a share. The Treasury is an extension of what Congress wants in many ways. And Janet Yellen, our Treasury Secretary, has shocked me with how political and bad she's been. I mean, Janet Yellen could be remembered as the worst Treasury Secretary ever, right? We have a gap that's getting out of hand and she hasn't said a word. Janet Yellen is a very smart woman who has worked as a govt worker her whole life and gets it. But she